Welcome everyone. We would like to give our sincere good afternoon, great welcome to everyone to our first day of our data science fair organized by the GobLab, the innovation laboratory of the Adolfo Ibáñez University. Before we start this session, this workshop, public algorithms, how are they being using the data in these states? We will present the repository for public algorithm prepared by us, and also we will release the first report of since it was constituted. To start this fair and this activity, we will give our welcome to the government school dean, Diana Kruger, who will give you some words for this inauguration of the data science fair. Also, I would like to tell you that you can access interpretation for this event within your Zoom screen. Please, Dean, your words. Thank you very much, Vita. Can you hear me well? Well, first of all, thank you all for being here and be a part of this event that's going to be a week long. I would like to congratulate GobLab and all its team for all the management they've done. In particular, I know all the efforts done by Maria Paz Hermosilla, the director, and are very much a part of everything the GobLab does. All the GobLab team, where they are pioneers into bring many subjects into the agenda, national agenda. They have been innovators, 7 generations from PhD in public policies. They were the first and they continue to update it. Now it is not only giving diplomate for public policies, but also training in other teams such as data governance, data ethicals in IA. Many of these themes I mentioned will be covered during this week. Today I would like to congratulate them for such a big turnout. We have more 1,200 people enrolled for the activities of the week, so my congratulations. The work being done by GobLab is included within one of the purposes of our university that has to do with being an entity connected with our society, and we ask everyone to promote the contributions that the university does in matters that are of public interest that usually are more hidden. So GovLab has a very important job in this purpose. Also, we would like to mention the success of this convocation. It is very pleasurable for us within the activities of the weeks occurs that we have one of the guests from the GovLab, the Technological Institute from Monterrey. I think it's on Wednesday. We will have a course talking about proactive inspection or early warning system that are so important for many different institutions on the public sector as well as the private. This is not limited to the public sector. I will also take advantage of this opportunity to let you know that we have a new diplomate by GobLab after many versions and many successes in our diplomates, namely the data science in public policies. We detected the need in our users of having a diplomate geared towards the transformation in public management in the digital age. We can describe it in a very simple way as the way I understand it anyway, is a combination of management diplomate, public management diplomate, and also within the new reality that we're facing, and that is We have a digital world with social networks, with a great amount of data, both structured and non-structured. So that is a diplomat that if you are interested, you can ask when it starts, but I think it starts in April or May of the present year. Also, I would like to mention and to highlight the effort of this initiative of the theme today, the repository for public algorithms, an initiative done inside the GobLab that after many years of working along with several institutions in the public sector, they reflect and realize that it is important to share with the community and the citizens, or even create a space where we can share all the several algorithms that are being created in the public sector that use administration information of personal data. As I see it about this theme, this repository does serve several purposes. I don't want to encroach on Maria Paz's speech, but its mission, for me, I don't know if to say a goal, but one of the main reasons or benefits of this repository is to drive the ethical usage of data, to promote transparency, that are core values, very important ones, to have good governance of data, a good public management, and in the end to strengthen our government. So I congratulate you for this initiative and the best success. Have a nice day. I will be here. I saw the agenda for the week. I would wish to be in all of them. I'm a very good student, but you will see me here as a student later. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dean, for these welcoming words and this framework that you're saying that is important for us, because it gives us a context for the next days that we have prepared. Is the idea of setting up such an important theme of deep innovation that is required by public management. We have come together to answer the question, how are data being used by the states? So now we have the repository for public algorithm and the result of this annual report that are related to this initiative. We would like to thank for the panelists that we have with us today. We have presented it in a way by our Dean, Maria Paz Ergosilla, the GobLab Director, a journalist UC and Master in Public Administration from the NYU, also Academic Director for the Diplomat Public Science from our GobLab. Jose Nostroza, Magister Public Policy, lawyer from the Chile University, also the Senior Consultant for Public System of the same institution. We also have Armando Guillo, Master in Law by Harvard and Master in Public Policies from the Oxford University. In this way, we start our workshop, Public Algorithm in Chile, how data is being used for our state. Remember, you can leave your question in the chat during the event, and those questions will be answered at the end of the panel. Please, panelists, take it away. Thank you very much, Vita. Today, as Vita mentioned, we will tell you on the results of this repository that we are launching today, and also I will present, and then we will have Jose and Armando commenting, and I would like to thank them. We have met with Jose when I came back to Chile back then in 2016. He was the one in charge of the upgrading the state by the Secretary of the Government. I've seen in many roles, and a book that was published at the end of September to modernization of the state with 12 different chapters. I'm the author of one, integrating administrative data to increase design and evaluation of public policies. So we have had some contact there, panels on modernizations. We also were in the board of the GobLab. So thank you, Jose, for take the invitation and make the comments. And we also have Armando Guio, who comes from Colombia. He worked in the strategy for artificial intelligence in Colombia and the repository that they have for artificial intelligence systems and all the ethical framework of when you use artificial intelligence. We get together in the FAIRLAC, the initiative by the ethical use of artificial intelligence in Latin America and the Caribbean, which we are part of. So thank you, Armando, for giving us an international view. I don't know if there's more people from other parts of America Latina. We want to make this happen in all of Latin America. We're looking for partnerships to have a project within several countries with several public organizations. So if we have any other public workers from other part of Latin America, I'd like to welcome. I will share my screen. Is there anything in the chat that I need to look at now? Just let me know. So here's my screen. As Vita mentioned, I'm the director. This idea came from my experience in the NYU GobLab, where I was a part of creating several observatories. And when we started to work here in the GobLab, we have this question a lot: who was doing what with what data in the public system and using algorithms? And we will comment on what we knew, what we have learned in classes, what we have heard, but we needed a systematic effort, and thus we decided to create this repository for public algorithm. We had long discussions into what was to be inside such a repository. This wasn't easy to put constraints. Also, this is a marketable concept. Maybe the algorithm concept is not well known, so we have a formula and have structured the step that they take input and produce an output. And now with what we care about is the automated decision making systems. This is the first step that you can already see on the internet. publicalgorithms.cl has been done with a research team from our university, Adolfo Ibáñez. This project for now has had not any other funding from a third party. We are looking for funds to complement this. So this is the first step, the first stage that we open to the community. We introduced this in October to a small sample group of 100 public innovators. They came to our workshop within our annual meeting. So maybe some of you have already heard of this, but today we will also present the findings from the first round of cases that we analyzed. So what is the repository? This is a platform where we compile and show system that supports and take decisions in automatic manner. So automated decision making system, the OCT and BIT have take this system that help decision maker, or they propose, for example, an alternative or a path. They propose also an answer for the public worker, or just straight up take a decision. They assign a child to a school. So it is in that range. They can be simple algorithms like the school admission system. This is a business rule algorithms with some certain rules and a random element, or maybe more complex, neural networks for using diabetic eye information, eye disease for diabetics. So these are support or automated decision making system, and they have been done by a public institution in Chile. We are concerned in the state as a whole. So what motivated us to create the repository? Well, two words: visibility and define or characterization. This view what the system are do that are based on data. Why? Because we want for public institutions to be able to innovate. We believe there's plenty of room for innovation, but if I don't know what I can do, in our courses we see this when we show them 20 different cases to our students. They say, I will be able to do this. So this is what we want to promote. And once we have this catalog, this portfolio, is much easier. So we can tell them, go and see what they're doing in health area. We have had many hospital directors coming through our courses during the years, and it's much easier to direct them to the repository and take some ideas. So this idea of view to motivate innovation in other people that already have interest is very clear. And the second part, characterization or definition, is how data is being used. And this is on the second part, is where we have most of the challenges. So, why do we want to do this? The state is using ever more data. I don't know about this, but the criminal defense public system use a virtual assistant in the control detention system. The Ministry of Education has a school admission system that is also automatic. And even though we have moved forward in open data since 2011, we had the portal in the presidential instructive. We became part of the OGP, Open Government Partnership, but that open data in Chile, by the measurements, we're in the 5th place, and in the region we have the 6th place. So there's room for improvement in data. Also, if we look at the open data, but if we look at governance of data, a recent study by CAF identifies us as regional leaders to Brazil and Colombia, and then Chile is among the 8 countries that are in the early stages. We're in the same stage as Uruguay and Peru by CAF. What are they looking at? For example, we don't have a national director of data or a function akin to that. We don't have a department or unit specifically responsible for data, usage of data. So these type of things motivated us. This repository could be done by the central government. That is what we would like. But in the meanwhile, we will support the government from the university, but in an ideal world, this will be a catalog done by the data unit or the data office. So how did we do this repository? So first, how do we know if there's system? Our methodology is basically looking in decision making, looking for press, heard as the snowball effect. You talk and you get told about something or other, and then you reach through comments what our students tell us in classes also. However, our repository take systems that are public, because we've heard of system but there's no public information. So in that sense, not because I know something is going on, I cannot put it into the repository because it doesn't have public information. First I hear about it, then we look the information if it's of public access on the internet, and then we create a sheet with some standardized fields. We made this more systematically, set for the initial point, the identifying the system, because with the Council for Transparency we did a survey, and then we had the opportunity to spoke with 800 state institutions, and 270 something answer, and we identified 93 systems, and out of those several were repeated. There were 70 that were unique, and out of those 70, those with public information link we included in the repository. So there was an effort, thanks to the Council for Transparency, that they have a project parallel to this one, but we took that opportunity to. So I think we got 10 more systems from that effort. And so for you to realize, we have more 15 other systems into the folder. I spoke with Miguel, our research assistant, and we have 50 more ready to update. So we will continue updating this repository, but of course, if we will have resources to make an annual survey in alliance with a public system, of course, when this is a voluntary work, we will have a partial picture of the whole. We could always sit down with all the website, with all the institution, with each link, and reach more system. There's several ways. For now, we have taken other methodologies as interviews. I mean, as I mentioned, the method has been limited to that, but we could think of many other things. The description fields are the ones that you can see there. You can actually see them online. We have the title of the project. We then classify them in two large ways that are the Sustainable Development Goals by the UN and the Expand Functionality by the press, the budget office. This is something that the public understand. However, we did have large discussion on how we should divide this by sectors. Anyway, we normalize this. They use different expense classification from the World Monetary Fund. We have labels relative to the system to know if this is being in use, the public institution related to the system, the executor, if this was done by a public institution or by a university. We will see universities have a part on this. So there's several fields that we have determined, and that of course you can also increase all the fields, but there's so much information that you can get from public information available to the public. So the longest was its description of that particular system, was one or two paragraph of information. The method constraints many. There's no specific obligation for transparency when you use algorithm in the States. We published a study last year about it. So really is what we just heard. There's no active transparency law where we can launch an API or maybe have a robot to do web scraping to have all the statement done about algorithm every month. We have many times the public information, let's say the public accounts doesn't have all the information that we need. There's no technical information. In that sense, we have several constraints because the information may be out of date. We will try to update many times a year, but sometimes the systems are no longer in use, and if they don't inform to the public, we cannot hear about it. So, but we will see the glass half full, and we will see what are results. So we took 50 cases, as I mentioned. We accepted up September 24th last year when we closed our research. The second stage, maybe March or April, we will have 15 more cases, and we will start a campaign when we hope for your help in what system do you know. So we hope for public workers, researchers, or whatever paper you have in the public innovation ecosystem. Please talk to us. And of course, if you see information that you see information from your institution it is not well represented, please let us know as well. The idea is to have as a collaborative process. So what did we find? Well, the great part of it is in health, 28%. Then we have economical affairs, the one that we found the least. General public services, there is a category used for subjects such as executive and legislative bodies, tax issues, for example, the algorithm for booking times in foreign affairs office. That is something like that. But in health, this is the biggest participation. Makes sense in regards to what is going on in the world. I think it is important to notice that in health we have many fallings, and we could see that algorithms are useful to support health if done in a responsible manner. And in that way, I would like to make a clarification that we don't evaluate if a system is well done well or bad, or if it's ethical or not. That is out of the reach of the repository. We would love to do a study about it, but for now, with the methodology we have, it is not possible. As type of task, we came to the OECD classification for the classification of the type of work, and what we use the most is prediction. The 26% out of the 50 are predictive models. We have a predictive model for school dropouts done by two ministries of the government, seeing what is the risk of a child to drop out of school, and then to have the school to apply protocols according to the risk, so to maintain that student in school. The other most common stack are recognition, but recognition in images, videos or text that is done in real time. Here we have Metro Valparaiso that are using with facial recognition to see if the people are using the school benefits and third age properly. And the 18% one is optimization, and the other one interaction support system. Optimization speaks the Ministry of Transportation to optimize all the buses, and the interaction services, we're talking about chatbots and interaction with citizens. So those are our findings. In regards to funding, if you notice, it wasn't easy for us to see how the system were financed. We didn't receive any information in 48%. We looked for two types: who or what fund financed the system and the amount for the funding, but that wasn't easy. 25%, we know how much it cost, the specific amount. And here we have a very important fund from ANIF and CONICIF that is related to FUNDEF, that has helped development system. For the firefighters, they developed the commander system, and then they converted in simple route that it became a company. So FUNDEF helps to create system that they grow and remain in public administration and remain as public assets. So we view that. In regards to the entities that execute the system or who develop the systems, even if it's done by the same institution or if it's done by a third party, there's a big distribution between privates without information. And in regards if the system are in use or no, we have found 78 that are in usage. There's another percentage that are in pilot stage, but we also see that we don't have any information. So here it is very hard for us to know where the system it is at the now. So in health, what we can see, there's a lot of potential to increase the coverage for exams or beds for this eye disease and diabetes. We will see for COVID has a role in a repository. Universities are taking part in health projects, and less half of the project have national coverage. So we'll see what is happening in health. In protection of the environment, here is divided between from central government bodies against public offices, and we have the INEA that has several systems, and their system we have seen in other research have a lot of transparency and very well documented. In education, we have different types of systems. There's not that many, but we have the FUNDEF system. The University of Aysén also have a system for admission, and the school admission system is very relevant because it's across the country. Some of the conclusions. Well, first off, it's very difficult for us to find all the information that we tried to find, and what we did find was not easy. We came from news to even the balance of digital management. That was very useful. Public accounts. Every law is moving forward, and that help us. We have found inspection reports from the House Senate. So there's several ways to reach, but this is scattered in all level of expertise and office. So it is not simple. There's a lot of interpretation going on that you don't know if you are actually doing a right job, because you don't have access to the base source, because there's no standard of what information should be available for these systems. We researched this in another study, as I mentioned, with the Council for Transparency, where we received answer from 800 organisms answer us, and we proposed a standard for active transparency. We don't need a legal change. The law already in place gives the faculty or powers to this council, so the council is already working on it. It's part of their work, their framework, so we can move towards a higher level of transparency in this automated decision-making process system, and in all areas of public decisions that are supporting or making decisions have to be transparent. So in that way, we do need to move forward in algorithmic transparency. We don't need change in law. We only need powers in the council, but you cannot just give an instruction. There's a work to be done with public organism in training and also degrees of transparency, because not everything can be made available at the same time, but we do have to make this available to the public, visual, because the innovator groups, we also have to highlight and connect. So we see 3 roads to move forward, and this is the invitation, the open invitation to all the people in our audience that wants to help. First is to increase the amount of system in the platform. Maybe we can have an annual survey in alliance with a public institution, or maybe several public institutions, to do monitoring in social network with automatic system, how we can make a box or good bots that let us know when these systems are created, do web scraping, text analysis, and also move forward in active transparency. The more transparency is an obligation, the better the survey. The second topic, research in greater depth each system. We have to do very loops with the systems, and many public workers told us, I want to know what was the difficulty that you had, what have you learned, or how long the project was. It was longer than you scheduled for, and all of that we need to learn through interviews. We need to have other research methodology. We need to have requests for transparency, for purchase orders and such, because we know that has been used before, but that takes a lot of time and resources. So we would like for us to have cases to make and to start to teach this. How do we use data science like Harvard did? And the last part, create practice communities within the public workers that are part of the system. We want for the people behind the system to meet one another. If I work in a hospital, maybe can call a colleague in another hospital and say, yeah, I would also like to make a system to follow up in release of a patient. And we need to do that type of communities in the public system. And we have the network of innovation, we have the GobLab, but how do we find out who is behind each system? That is pretty difficult. Without having interviews, is almost impossible. And who is behind this? And I would like to thank everyone, and there's many more. Claudia Aracena, our data scientist, that has done an important job in coordinating, and he's now an associate researcher in the GobLab. We have had several research assistants. We have Javier Quiroz, Rodrigo Navarrete, Matias Virato. We have engineers, and for public policies, Antonio Domingue, and now Miguel Cid. We hope to have many more assistants, so if you are students, every 3 or 6 months we open internships in this topic. So thank all of you, and please integrate your project. If you are a public worker in Chile and you know an automated decision making system that has public information that is publicly available, or that is to say in internet, not to send it to me on an email, but is publicly available, please let me know so we can include it in the repository. Also, if you see any mistake in the system that you use, of course, please let us know, because this is an iterative process. There's a form that you can fill out for us to review. And that's it. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for coming and delivering your experience in the topic we're seeing today. So please, Jose Inostroza. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Thank you for having me. It is a very fascinating topic, at least for me and many people close to this. Obviously, to congratulate the effort of the Adolfo Ibáñez University, in particular Maria Paz, that has been doing this for a long time, this type of, and we know how hard this is. Very little funding, very little information available, and there's a lot of passion behind this. And she also asked, why didn't the government did this? Those who have worked in the government know how difficult it is to do stuff. So it is welcome the support of the university, because their knowledge is irreplaceable. Maybe in the future we should strengthen this type of initiative, because it's more likely that the government is difficult for it to do so, because it has so many challenges and so many constraints. And having said that, I would like to share some of thoughts and some beliefs, and maybe discuss them later. First of all, I would like to convince about how important it is to work with algorithm in public offices to add value. And I believe this because I've seen it, and I've seen what it can do, or they can do. And in many topics, I believe that the technical costs and the professional capabilities are not as relevant in Chile. I think we have a little bit of abundance in technical abilities, and we have problems from another nature. So why we haven't done more, considering the huge impact and the opportunities that we have? It is impressive to me how difficult it is to us to connect this type of issues with the impact it has on citizens. There can be several reasons. There's many problems in our country, so we lost this type of topic. So we're open. Maybe we have a conversation that is overly technical. So maybe we could include people in the more generic decision making. Just to give some examples from the mobilization program, and I don't know if they're still doing that. I think it is not, because there's a discontinuities. Okay, the work labor that we do with an engineering student in regards to inspections. Basically, it was about predictive, or where the companies that were again the biggest infractors were located. We were talking about looking at the rights for the workers. There are millions of people in Chile in regards to working conditions. And I remember the approximated data. It was 26% of cases, approximately, when they will go to do an inspection. There were, every time an inspection was done, 26% of infractions were done. And there was another study that they found that 30-something% of infractions So if this was done, it were random, would be bigger infractions. But if the government made an effort, there were less. So later we found out that there were KPMG incentives that promoted the amount of findings for these studies. And like all the human beings, they look for the cost and they look for the closest, the companies that were closest to labor inspection. So once this work was done, so with one student and one teacher and with almost no funding, I think the first results were about 46% of cases or 41% of cases, only using data available and a little connection to the IRS. They increase in 80% of covering or discovering infractions. That is impressive. So I studied a few data, and the increase in efficiency in finding went through the roof. So I asked how many more things of this nature we can do with a little bit more of effort, with a little bit more of resources we could do. I think there's many opportunities, and something is going on that we are not using it enough, and that's my next point. And how do we design a state where these type of things happen? So we have a lack of government involvement. There's nobody in the government that drive this. There's Maria Paz Hermosilla, maybe out of 5 people in the country doing this. We talk about a lot about it. This is very cool to do so, but public administration are the ones that should be driving this. The digital government, they do good and important stuff, but they're very fragile as a personality. They're just an advisory to the presidency, and with the new law, they are over their head. So it is mandatory for a country to move to a more strong digital government bodies, to have public or services agency. They can have operational capabilities and inspection capabilities, and one of their attributes is the data officers that we have been talking about for 10 years but hasn't appeared, and to invest heavily to drive in a systematic manner with a proper strategy to have an intelligent system of this kind. Not just wait for an spontaneous, for with smart, witty people come together at university and do something. I believe as innovation, this has to happen. This not happen as just spontaneously, but rather as a public policy that has as an objective to weed out the opportunities and use the good ones. I think ideas of this kind, that also we need to generate more information. We need to create an award for the best initiatives, because I think it's very little recognized. We have to have a specific line of funding for this, for any entity that wishes to do a project of this type, come to a funding of this type, but they have to be resources aside, because these have innovation components that are very strong. So the parameters to decide and to evaluate the impact of the resource has to be within the innovation framework, not as a virtual routine of funding. Maybe support the infrastructure, maybe superintendencies have the capacity, the computing capabilities, but probably the rest do not have it. Maybe we should have share computing capabilities, maybe to connect and articulate a network of specialists, maybe create a unit that brings all this knowledge together. It is very important to have, this is, as you mentioned, how to generate contacts, how to talk with people that has already done something on this topic and share their experience, and not having reinvent the wheel every time. It would be good to have decision making support, so there's many patterns that are similar, and many times they will find the same challenges or the same legal constraints. So it is essential for efficiency to be able to share information. I definitely think we have to have a Gov laboratory well, you could say we have the innovation GobLab, but we should have more than one. I think it's a mistake that our GobLab falls or receives all the public issues in innovation. I think we have to specialize more. I think this is worth to invest on something like this, and I don't have the numbers here, but I know that there are funding the funds that Maria Paz is looking for. Where if we say this system costs this much and these are the impacts or the results, so when you have that information, you can speak with the budget process and the budget process and say we are not investing this more, only with a few data. In the public sector, this is a study that we did. We estimate that 30% of the time of the state workers they do processes that have very little value added or add value. So we're talking about 900,000 people in all the public sectors. So these are thousands of people wasting time. The quality of the decisions are, in many cases, are negative. We come together with the bonuses. The state paid money to people that work in the state and had no needed more money, and like that all the social problems. So the work that they are doing about estimation in schooling, the amount of resources that does in post challenges, like when they cannot really, kids that have a lot of difficulties and they drop out of school and they start committing crimes, and the expenses in safety are millions and millions of dollars, and we should have a scientific unit in the highest level generate this type of initiative to catch these problems upstream using intelligent algorithm like they do in New Zealand and such. So I believe everyone here believe in this matter. The question is, why is the rest of the question, or the country does not take a big leap, more systematic? Because this is just that the profit is huge. That is the question that we have to do now. And what is the narrative? What is the evidence? How do we design a project to create real capabilities to escalate this up? I think this interest in health. This is my last comments. And the question is why there is so many cases in health area. I think one of the reasons is because health, it is a community of knowledge. I mean, doctors in general, specialists in general, are very aware of what is happening around them, and this type of initiatives probably happen elsewhere, and there's a system of knowledge transference that is very strong. So the question is, why is this not done in the rest of public administration? Thank you very much. Thank you, Armando, on your words. In themes that are so important to us, and how to extend this to a central government level, and how we assume this. And thank you for your vision. We would like Maria Paz. No, I was just clapping. I didn't raise my hand. I was just clapping. Then I will speak some question, but now we will like to hear from Armando. Thank you very much to everyone for having me. The university, thanks to the Adolfo Ibáñez University and the GobLab, to the effort that we see, to your invitation and the leadership that she has done. We have this algorithm repository in Chile. And following what Jose said and what have been commenting, I would like to talk a little bit, comment the Colombian experience. I have the opportunity to work and talk in the region, and how I see this repository of algorithm, and in this case came from academia, in Chile. I also had the opportunity to get to know what the report did, and also get to know how I put some of the findings of the report and the exposition of Maria Paz are very interesting to me, because we can see how so dynamics in what are the sectors that are using this type of initiative the most, what are they reporting. But the first thing I would like to say is that the exercise in general, a repository for algorithms, and with this characteristic, is very powerful. This is a call for transparent, ethical, transparent algorithm generation from the region to a worldwide level. This is not an easy topic. It's a topic that we will create many challenges, many questions, and we will have to answer them among all and between all the different sectors. So I would like to say that this exercise that is started in academia with all the recollected information is very important, because it's one of the major gambles for the next years on ethics in artificial intelligence. And this system, or this type of repositories, allow us to come to the ethical principle. We have seen this in Colombia. The Ministry of the Interior developed, along with the CAF, the framework for artificial intelligence in the countries, and we also did a repository, a dashboard for artificial intelligence. I would like to, even if you can share it in the chat, so you can have the link to see it, that shares a lot of characteristics with the repository done by your university. However, the other one came from government and international entities. So the international entities and the Colombian government did this, and there was a particular office for the digital transformation made this dashboard repository, and the challenges are very similar in the different countries around access to information, that public workers understand why and how. And another very important issue is the issue of intellectual property, and until what point can we have access to the algorithm without torpedoing or damaging the innovation system in the public system within public sector. And that is one of the major points. How we ensure that this type of repository, when they have greater access to the algorithm, will not clash with the IP laws, and then with all the ecosystem of the innovation. And that is a challenge, a core challenge that we will have to face. But the good of this exercise is that we are generating the first standard, the first exercise, and how we can achieve transparency. But then that is the first idea I would like to throw out there, that this is driven by academia or by the government, faces same challenges. If it's only driven by the government, may help in some issues, but it creates another set of challenges. And coming from one side of the other, what we're looking is governance, coordination, and clarity on why we are doing repositories. And I think the repository done in Chile is a huge work. And I think you are doing a great job justifying the same type of exercises in other countries and other policies. For example, let's see Peruvians artificial intelligence that speak register for ethical algorithm that they are trying to do in the next few years. That is a policy that we have done. We work with that policy with the CAF, and we helped driving that in Peru, and that was introduced, that particular point of having a registry of ethical and having an algorithm registry in Peru. Then Peru, who will notice that what is have done in Chile and what is being done in Colombia, that will Peru see that. What has Colombia look at? We've seen what they're doing in Europe, in Amsterdam, Helsinki, and Nantes, more advanced in the presentation of information. and they have greater access to the algorithm, and they can see what technology is being implemented. What Nantes has now, 2 projects. They haven't been able yet to have the descriptions in a massive number of projects. We have 6 projects. We have 6 projects, and Amsterdam have 3. The Chile now is starting having maybe 50 projects or more, but I know it's a great number. The system identified, and that is a luxury, because what should happen now is a greater definition of these projects, saying, okay, we know who is using artificial intelligence, so now we have to define and increase the capacity to understand what type of technology, how the algorithms are working, what type of data are they using, who are responsible, what are the areas or departments that are responsible for the project, and I think you will go into greater depth along the way. So that is another major idea, or maybe 2 of them. The generation or generate a governance. It is key to allow to every country that start this exercise to understand why, who liderates. They are the leader because they have a greater knowledge of technology, or because they have international support. So this is not closed, that is only the president or the science ministry or academia itself, or many other entities that can take part of these type of systems. The other thing I would like to say is that since we want many answers, the impact of this type of repository is not closed to a single country, but rather it is expanded to other countries, and that's what makes this so interesting, that this is pioneers. Now, Chile will have an impact in many other countries. I'm saying it, I feel this impact in seeing this report in the health projects. How can we do something similar in Colombia or in other countries I work with? And the next topic that I think is important to highlight, that comes from the report, and we have talked about Maria Paz about it, to understand that yes, algorithm repository allows us to understand what the data is being used for, and what type of data is being used, and who have the largest repository of information. Where is this information coming from? Is this coming only from the public sector, or only coming from the private sector? But we shouldn't close the idea of helping a repository for algorithms simply to a data topic. We shouldn't close the talking about international artificial intelligence or the type of information, but also what moderation is doing, what type of algorithm, the shape and the assumptions that are being used, which is one of the elements that are most important and will create more discussion in the coming years when talking about public policies and lawmaking topics around artificial intelligence. And if this repository allows us to know a little bit more on how these are being made, or how they are being managed or used, this is very important. In addition to the data behind the training, the system, the working, and all the aspects where data comes from. So we shouldn't constrain the repository only for data usage, but also what is all the rest that accompanies this system, and moderation, and all the other elements that are key for working an artificial intelligence system. So I believe that is another major point, that the repository does great work by identifying, despite its limitation, because of the challenges that we will find every time. As for Colombia, we have 6 projects that we've been able to launch, and they needed more than a description of the project. What we have is a presentation of how each project has its own responsible workers, and how the technology is using the ethical framework in Colombia, who has the responsibility, liability, who has the human control. And we have found many type of answers. Some maybe have more technical value, or maybe the answers are more straight. As Maria Paz mentioned, that happened with the Chilean repository. We don't have already a unique standard for the information that we receive, but we do hope, or we're moving forward towards that, and I think that's one of the also main challenge: how we collect information, how we can trust in the information, and how we create trust in all those actors in the algorithm chain and the AI system in the public policies. Because remember, this is not also in a few public workers, but there's also suppliers, there's entities that are involved in designing these systems, and many other actors, the city that is impacted by this, and they will also want to be a part of the process. If you allow me to close, in closing, I would like to show you what is our own repository in Colombia, so you can also get to know it. And these repositories are not focused only in these countries. They are being doing in other stages, because the same people doing this repository didn't picture at the time, but now they will generate a standard in Latin America on how we report a project or system with artificial intelligence in the public sector, and how do we create transparency. And if we create more symmetry and alignments with what Chile is presenting and Colombia is presenting, I think we are starting to create a standard in Latin America for algorithm transparency, and how we want and how we see this type of information and this type of project, and what and are we satisfied in when we talk about transparency. And this is not easy. This has costs, its own set of challenges, including legal ones. So very briefly, I will share. I'm not sure if I can. Not able, but I think you have the link at your disposal in the chat, so you can do a picture with this narrative. When you enter the dashboard, here we go. We go to the dashboard. We see the primary information of each project, similar to the Chilean one, without actually talking about it, because you asked for the sustainable development goals. Why? And why we did that? Because we think that it is clearly a time of linking technology to those type of targets, and to see how technology is making it easier, and to see the benefits or the social profit that this creates. Then we go to the second page for each project. We have a lot of similitudes with the Chilean repository, and with some of the question will be the same: advancement, how many population is impacted, the money used. And I see something that we focused when we have the principle for the ethical framework of the AI. We talk about the principles and the practical uses of the ethics in the AI. Not only describing the project, but also the ethic. This was also have the support of BID and CAF, and they have supported Colombia, and maybe that's why it is also so important, the support. And we hope the support for this type of project that we hope continue this year, because we need a strong backstage, and that is also a challenge to what we can do and reach, and the funds on resources that we need. Okay, I went over my time a little bit, so that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you to share my experience, and to continue to share of what will come from this repository from the GobLab from Chile. Thank you very much. So, Maria Vaz. I was looking at the question from the chat. Pamela Gana asked, what are the possibility of having this repository to capture information of algorithm transparency, specifically to report for each case if the user is informed that algorithm is being used on him, whether on the institution webs it's done, how the algorithm is being used, and also if the user can make claims about it. All of the things Pamela is saying, several of them, we took them as part of the standard that we proposed for the Council for Transparency. The point number 3, it is something that we believe is basic in regards to algorithmic transparency. So yes, those are information that will have interesting to have in the repository. If we can have some type of questionnaire, I think if we have to analyze on our own, I think number 1, depending on the type of algorithm, we'll have to make a experiment user to know how the algorithm works. And number 2, I think maybe we can evaluate probably and create its own category without so much extra work. Point number 3, I think that in the school admission system you have to read the user manual until a very specific rule, so you can tell that they are using an algorithm. Yes, sometimes you can know but that they're being used, but in different ways. But yes, these are topics that when you talk about algorithmic transparency, these are very important. Whether people know if they're in an automated system that is basic for your rights, is there clear information on how it's being used and is publicly available, even if it's people that is not using the algorithm, and that about the claims and complaint, it is also basic. So Pamela, yes, all of this should be a part of it, but then to actually have it in the repository, I would love to do it, and hopefully we'll go in that way. I don't know if Jose would like to say something about the topic, maybe Armando. I think it's a very good idea, and hopefully we can move forward on that. The difficulty in that, we don't have a law on it, so this is an innovation process with people coming from universities, but the idea is to have a working framework and moving along that. I'm in agreement. I also add that it's important that a lot of people, this also is before the standard that we want to have. So these repositories and how they are working and what type of information they have on the site, then later this will guide the transparency laws. So I believe it is good out of all this information to collect the evidence and help create a standard or a law for transparency, particularly in Chile and in the rest of Latin America. So we have a very good question. We will all answer it. Thanks for your congratulations. And the question comes from Mauricio Casanova. Jose mentioned the government challenge to allow the use of this system in the public system, since this is not a human gap. What is the new measurements that a new government could implement to achieve new changes that are irreversible towards better government or in AI system? I don't know who wants to go first. A quick comment. I don't think if we can make it irreversible, but this is a professional long-term system. We should strengthen digital government with a unit that is special for that. We should start quickly a hiring system, have a better knowledge in digital government. I think that unit should prepare a reasonable strategy and that is feasible to start moving all the actors required to build a system. We don't have that today in digital government, and that is saturated. We need an additional unit. We need to create an institution in digital government, and one of the legal functions should be to promote a system of data usage and proper data usage in our country. I think that we should add this to the budget. That helps to have a project persistent. If they have their own specific space for innovation and funding and evaluation, but that is done systematically And as an institution, as we would all like to have in a system like this, it is more likely to be more lasting if they have a budget. So it is not a single person driving this. A person did this for 2 years, but then that came to nothing. I think that's the worst scenario. The, the question remind me of something I wanted to mention. Chile has a great opportunity on a starting point, aside from the work done in the university, having a Chilean law on international intelligence. And I know the transparency issue is being highly discussed in the ethics axle. Is also very important to a point to start from. I think there's a national policy that has been traced, and that could be a good stepping point to start making a lot of these proposals and do these proposals as implementation mechanism, and then how to link all of this together in a state policy and a policy that is being done socially. Like the work that we did with the CAF in Chile, we saw the level of citizen participation, in particular one with the construction of the ethic policy, and I think that will help give stability to, if this is done something publicly and highly discussed, to a sense of one person or one government, and the next government will understand that this type of policy and initiative, that compliance in ethics and transparency goes, it is not for a single government, it is something that many experts, many citizens want for the country. And I think that this testimonial in the basis that you have to build on this. In Colombia, for example, the registry in Colombia is an exercise for the implementation of the ethical framework of artificial intelligence, and that is an initiative within the artificial intelligence policy of Colombia. As you mentioned, Maria Paz, the topic of the experience report done by the CAF that have been looking with the OECD in the region, and along with Colombia, they believe they can create sustainability, that this is derived from a series of starting point. Then first you make a framework, then you have the repository. So we are building a policy and an implementation process. It is not simple to create a repository, and that is not linked to anything like in part of the government or public policy to support it. Yes, and to complement and close this question, effectively, indeed, we need a greater opportunity to move forward. The upcoming government could name a chief data officer in the framework of its executive powers, but if we will want to make this irreversible, we will have to present a project, and I think we have to bring together all the functions of digital government, government labs, mobilization secretary. I believe we should have an agency of state transformation with the IRS or another subsecretary in government. It makes sense to me because that ministry have Chile Compra and all the process and transform the government goes across all the departments. So we could do this in this government, and starting from a data policy that we weren't able to outgoing government. We did have a policy on artificial intelligence, and under that umbrella we could make actions. I don't know if you can have seen that policy on AI has 48 actions confirmed, but many others that are proposed. There are many ideas in the air. We need somebody to grab them, and in a framework that's very with high level of participation, but now we need to actually make it. And we have private-public project in UAI in execution, but in the transparency framework, we need institutions that come forward and actually make it and commit themselves to this framework. And I see another space to move forward, maybe not irreversible, but open government plans that every 2 years, and they commit to many actions to be done. I see space there. But if we don't have a data policy that is involved with the people, if we don't have a data protection law that gives us a stepping stone to work better, and if we don't add more capabilities in regards to people that can actually handle the data and articulate this under a political leader, it's going to be difficult to make such project irreversible. So we can have room for advancement in many ways. We have 12 minutes. I don't know, Jose, you have any question in the chat that you would like to answer? Or I can just choose one. What is the influence of the Constitution standard on transparency and citizens' involvement? What is the best ways for Chile? Have a legal body that comes with all of this together like France, having the government do it like Canada, or keeping with innovation? I think that question is for Romina, if she were here. We made a study last year that goes deep into this. I'm not a specialist in this topic, but I have a criteria. First, we have to have the knowledge, and I am not really sure where is the knowledge in Chile now. I think we're developing. Something that worries me, and something that happens in other public policies, we have a need to regulate and create frameworks, but on the other hand, we have the need for innovation. So this is more of an art. If you over-regulate, in particular if you don't have enough knowledge, then maybe you are squashing innovation. But if you don't regulate and you leave it spontaneously, you can have on the aspect that you don't want, or maybe hinder innovation because there's not a framework to regulate it. So this has to be done with a lot of criteria and thinking, and not go into regulation. Armando is a lawyer, myself as well as I. We know how much power lawyers have, and we know that they can turn everything into politics, and that could maybe slow the process down. So how do we have a good balance? There, Patricia Sao made this question, and from the GobLab, this is how we see it. One, you don't need to change constitution or law to move forward with algorithm transparency. Two, we don't need to change the legal body. We only need a general instruction by the Council for Transparency. And we studied 12 cases, and we went into 12 systems of different manners, from agriculture, going from health, social protection, and basing a British standard, we made the exercise of looking for information. And we did find a lot of information. So our theory is the knowledge to create a minimal cheat of this AI system, it is there. And that can be done easily with public workers, with what they're doing from consultant, or what they're doing for the House of Senate, what they do for public accounts. And so this can be done. The thing is that we need to advance with a minimal standard first. And that standard is not regulated by IP, and it doesn't also have the inspection algorithm magical formula. So I wouldn't say that how IRS inspect the people not paying taxes, but I would say that IRS, they do have algorithm for that, because this is there today. They are looking at you. So the minimal standard that we have proposed, that we like to already make a pilot stage, and if there's somebody here that is interested on doing it, let's do a pilot of the minimal standard for algorithm standard with the information in the repository. I would like to do it. Please write me if you're interested. My email is public. It also will appear in the chat. Let's make a pilot, because I agree with Jose. We need to generate a little bit more of knowledge. We did it with 12 cases, but we did it on our own account with information we found on the internet. It is not the same to sit down with the boss of the algorithm and do the exercise of filling out this sheet and see what's happening. And of course with clear language, because the idea is for any citizen to understand what is the algorithm is doing. But I do believe we do need to create knowledge, but not as much to reach a minimal standard. I know a lot of our users would like to have, you could have the leak for here, I would like to see the malwares, the data, so I can do the algorithm on my own. And that is another degree, another stage. For a minimal level of information, we have the starting knowledge, at least in the public workers, because I believe if we sit down with them, we will be able to generate graded advance, and an instruction will actually do it. It was when the general instruction number 11, I was working then, and I can tell you it was a lot of work in the public works ministry to actually meet the requirements of the council. And you can believe that also will drive, but I also will have to go with the Ministry of Education, with educating the workers, and before going to inspection and doing sanctions. We are 6 minutes away. We have a special question for Armando. How much does influence in digital government in Colombia, the citizens' participation, and it's a very specific sector. I'm not completely an expert on these topics. In the extractive sector, I know there's some issues, what we call in Colombia previous consultation before we implement and develop a project. I believe clearly all of this comes from a transparency standard, as we've talked. In Colombia we have this transparency law from 2014. This is a law that goes across all departments and how they must to communicate information. But I will say, in the exercise of the repository in Colombia, we have used the ethical framework a lot. We haven't used it as a binding document. It is a document used as a principal document and ethical, and to give transparency in ethical sense with respect to the citizens and respecting human dignity, that people have the right to see this information, because of the simple fact of millions of people are affected by these systems. So we have a project very specific that you can see on our dashboard. The project is to inspect and to control possible frauds in condition transfers. There's around 10 million people receiving transfer. They ask for monies and different programs like joint incomes and so on. These are programs that have a social impact that is huge, and we have detected a lot of frauds by using IA. And by using IA, we can actually see that these people does not need the subsidy, or maybe they put erroneous or harmful information, and they are out of the program. And in that point, what we saw is that it was needed to make transparent the service. So if you are not longer going to use in the program, is because we have this technology that works in this way and has this impact in your life. And that is one of the major challenges we have faced, how you convince people and the need and importance of having this. I think the workers want to do it, but sometimes they do not have all the information. So how much information should give him? And we don't want to give over ambitious and give them access to the complete model and all the data, or I just report to him about the project and that generate discussion. So this is where we have many other examples of information of the states and where the transparency culture influenced this, that has been done through legal means. And so then these people see this culture and see, yes, I can deliver this information. We have seen this in other projects. So that ways the public workers are more motivated to give information because there's a transparency culture in the country. And I would want to be clear that this ethical framework and this type of initiative, we have been doing it non-binding, so as to not have it, for the moment at least, not to have them transform to punish the worker or generate troubles for them, but more that we have to motivate them to be more transparent and to understand the impact of such a system in the life of the people. So this has been more ethical framework, and we are making a culture and a culture of algorithm transparency which does not go away from the public entities transparency laws that we have been doing. And since laws has been created, so that is the standard that we are having in Colombia. Thank you, Armando. Thank you, Jose. Just comment, everyone. We will share in your emails the next few days the analytic reports that we create from the 50 reports. So please be patient, but it will come to your email. And of course, we will make a public spread through social networks so we have more people reading it. But all the people that are here will receive it in their emails. Sadly, we are out of time, so thanks everyone, both Jose and Armando, for coming and sharing their experience and coming along with our journey. And I leave you with Vita, our MC. And so we came together in thanking everyone, for our panelists, also for the way you were able to expose something that is so important to us, like the roads for public algorithms and how data is being used, and the report that we want to make every year and make available to everyone and go deeper in this theme. This also is an invitation as well to every one of you to follow us in our website GobLab, where we have several activities and many events and courses, trainings that go along with this topic, and how we can generate inside public administration these capabilities and move forward post society and transparency and liability and proper use of algorithms. So thank you everyone for participating and getting to know reality of Colombia and how we have grown along them, and they have delivered us a very important element in this topic. So everyone, I wish you a very good day and a very good rest of the week, and please continue to be a part of the events in the following days that we have prepared in our first data science fair that goes along to the 13th of January. So we have all in the links in the chat. A hug everyone. Thank you very much for being part of it. Thank you. Be well. We have a lot of teachers that will share: Romina, Jose, Verguria, Adolfo de Unanes, Claudia Racena, Josh Vega, Gabriela Dennis. Tomorrow she has a workshop on maturity of data algorithm transparency. She will detail the sheet that we're proposing, hopefully you can come aboard one of the 7 workshops that we have from tomorrow to Thursday. Okay, thank you. Bye, take care.